Everyone, so we kept going with our creation series, and we asked you to read Genesis 1 and 2 last week, and we talked about it this Sunday, and we looked at the 7 days in the first chapter of Genesis, and we talked about how that might not necessarily be 7 literal days. It could be, because God's big enough and He could do it, but a lot of evidence in science and archaeology and geology points to the fact that the Earth is billions and billions of years old. And things happened over a really long period of time. And it says, even in the Genesis account, that the sun and the moon weren't created until day 4. So that's kind of what makes our days, right, for us. That's how we gauge them. And if they weren't created until day 4, what does that look like? What does that mean for the rest? I have no idea how to find out that answer, me personally speaking. So people might be much smarter than me. You might know. You might think I'm an idiot for not knowing, but that's okay. All I know is that this account is not to show us exactly how God created everything and how everything unfolded, but at the same time, the timeline of it is impressively on point for such an ancient writing, right? Like, it is on point with what we see in fossil records and what scientists believe, how they believe life came to be on the planet Earth. Like, it's the same, right? Like, there was water everywhere, volcanoes came, made land. That's exactly how it kind of sounds. It doesn't say exactly volcanoes, but that's the progression in Genesis. That then plants came on, and then there were sea creatures, and then there were birds, and then there were land creatures, and then human beings came after that. That's exactly the way things go in Genesis. So again, there's more commingling there than a lot of people give credit. So no need to hang our hat on a literal translation or not. It doesn't matter. God's big enough, and the point is that He created everything and gives it life and gives it breath. And the big question is, why? Why does He do it? Because He just wants to enjoy His creation. Your parents, when they had you as a kid, didn't plan out every day for you and say they had to eat tapioca pudding on this Tuesday in September 2015, or I will be sorely disappointed in them and they will not be my child. That's not how it works, right? Your parents want to see you grow up. They want to see how you act and react to things, the things you get interested in, the things you do, what you do with your time, the things you create. It's the same way with God. He does that for us. And this idea of childhood also, I think, speaks to the idea of how God could have created the earth and the reason it looks the way it does, right? The reason Moses doesn't go into the how so much is because he thinks it's kind of blatantly obvious maybe in our lives that even we as children, we're not born as adults, right? Like, you're not born and you're not who you're going to be as an adult, right? You're a little baby, right? We all are. And then we grow up and we change and we grow through that, right? And I think that's what creation looks like, right? Like, God created just light and darkness, very, abstract idea there in Genesis, and it grows and grows, and He creates earth, and then very specific things, and things happen, and it's kind of like the earth grew up and it was ready. A lot of theologians think there was this idea that creation was waiting to become this for human beings, right? That God was letting it grow up in that time, and that's very possible. So we want to hear what you guys have some questions about it. Remember, we're not talking about just a God being making random things happen, right? We're saying God did this intentionally and with a purpose. So think about what it would mean if God didn't really create the universe and everything just happened by chance, by reason. If it was not by reason, right? Like, if there was just chance and it was just chaos and craziness and some random stuff happened and we're here, right? That, if you really get down and think about that for a while, that's incredibly hard to believe. It's a lot easier to believe that a God existed and put stuff together to make things work, right? If everything was random chance, the question we asked in small groups was, would it matter what we do? If the universe came completely together by chance, would it matter what we do? right? Like, why do we have morals if that's the case, right? A lot of people say, oh, it was just an evolutionary trait that human beings got because we had to work together so we could survive against bigger predators, so we could stay warm during the winter, so we could build things, right? It was just so we could evolve and keep growing as a species and stay alive. But now we don't really need it because a lot of people, we know enough stuff, and if you really cared, you could figure out how to take care of yourself without everyone else, right? So we should just be able to do whatever we want. Does that feel good, right? Like, we know there are certain things that inside of us just wrench our guts when we hear about, right? And it makes us sick. Why is that? It's not because of some weird DNA moral code that we've written in, that we've placed in ourselves so that way we could be better, right? So we could go on as a species. That's hard to believe, right? Like, I think there's something because it said God created us in His image. And the things that disgust Him disgust us. And the things that bring Him joy bring us joy. Right? It's a lot harder to disprove that, I think, than it is to believe in it. Sometimes I think we have to fight more to not believe in God than we do to believe in Him. So look around, check out some nature, try and think, man, why did God create this? And ask Him that, and He might give you some awesome answers, some great insight. Right? But remember, we are created in His image, and He did it for a purpose, to have a relationship with us. Why? Don't know if we'll ever know until we get to see Him, right? But because He loves us. And that's a good enough answer for me. So keep asking some really good questions. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some of them. Love you guys. We'll talk a little bit more about evolution and stuff next time we get together. God bless.